Senator Gallego, thank you so much for joining the show. And while we always love to see Republicans get booed in their own town halls, get, shouted off stage, I do like to see Democrats go to Republican districts just a little bit more. It feels more productive. And that is exactly what you're doing, traveling to Bucks County. Can you tell me about the town hall in Pennsylvania that you are doing this coming up?
Well, look, these are town halls I've been doing in Arizona, and I've largely been going actually to Republican rural areas of Arizona to talk about a couple of things. Number one, the impending cuts to Medicaid. Rural parts of America are the ones who will get hurt the most by cutting Medicaid. Hospitals will shut down. People that normally are getting services are going to have to drive further, or people are just not going to have health insurance. We've also had VA town halls and some actually military bases about people that are worried about what's happening to their VA, their hospitals, their services in general. And then we've also had conversations about the economy, tariffs, employment, things of that nature. So, as part of that, some of us, the Democrats, are kind of spreading across the country to take this to Republican territories, and Bucks County is what landed on my plate.
Yeah, that's great. And what are you hearing mostly in these town halls that you're holding? Is it about these cuts to Medicaid? Is it the chaos specifically? Is it just the fear when you're talking with your friends in your group chat about Pete Hegseth and what seems to be scandal after scandal that's still happening? What's the number one thing you hear come up the most?
Fear, number one, when it comes to Medicaid. I've heard some horrible stories of some families that are worried about their special needs child being kicked off Medicaid. They're worried about maybe not getting the treatments that they need. They're worried about the local hospital that they're employed by closing down. They're going to have to find a new job. When it comes to the chaos in general, people are just unhappy about this chaos. If it's destabilizing, it gives them a lot of anxiousness because they just don't know what's going to happen today. They don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. They don't know what's going to happen to the economy, their jobs, or anything else like that. And, this is not the way Americans want to live. And the other thing is this is like a choice, right?
Yeah.
Like literally this administration made the choice to bring chaos to the voters. And, I think a lot of American voters, or just Americans in generally can deal with stressful situations when they're brought up, when it comes, but not when it's created by the person you actually put in office, right?
Yeah.
People elect leaders to bring stability. This guy's just bringing utter sheer chaos. And I think that's what's kind of grating on people.
Yeah, and he's doing it, like you said, like it's manufactured, it's purposeful, that they seem to want to be doing it, either if it's for the patronage that Donald Trump gets out of tariffs, he seems to like the chaos and distractions, or whether it's the quote that I always return to, which is Russ Vought saying he wants federal workers to feel traumatized when they come into work. That clearly applies to everyone. The concern that I've had most is, has Donald Trump also broken the spirit of Americans? Do people still think that programs can work for them? Like when you're talking about these cuts to Medicaid that are looming right now, when Donald Trump is talking with Elon Musk about going after Social Security, do people see these programs as things that just might be broken now in Donald Trump's attempt to destroy the government? Or do they still think that if we put the right people into office, if Democrats, take back the House, the Senate, the presidency, do they see that we can still make government work? Like, do they have hope?
Look, I think Americans generally are very hopeful all the time, even through some very hard, tough times. I think when it comes to programs that they're involved with, they actually do believe in them. Mm-hmm. It's when they hear about other programs that they start to kind of question, right? So good examples of when people think about Congress, everyone loves their congressman, but hate Congress in general. Same with these programs. But the goal of this is for them to destroy trust in government. There's a reason why Donald Trump lies about Social Security and says there's massive fraud, waste, and abuse, that there's trillions of dollars is being stolen, right? When we know for a fact that that's not a lie. You know why? Because Social Security is very, very popular. Social Security is also very, very efficient, and it runs very smoothly. The only way you could take away Social Security is by scaring people into hating it or not trusting it, right? So there is a thought and an ideology that's around this, right? The reason why they're firing as many Social Security workers as possible is so that way when you put your claim in, it's going to take forever for you to get your Social Security that you earned. And by the way, did you know, well, Jack, you're like gazillion years younger than me, so you're not even close to thinking about this. But the way it works for Social Security is when you put your claim in, it's not that they start paying you as soon as your claim comes in. It's not. It's as soon as they actually validate it. And so let's say you send in your claim, say I am now of retirement age, give me my Social Security check, and for some reason nobody opens it up, checks it, validates it. It could take 6 months. They don't owe you 6 months back pay. You get started 6 months from the point where they approve it. So that's even these little ways that they're kind of screwing around to make sure that they save money, quote unquote, so that they could give tax cuts to their rich buddies. So yeah, they're trying to deteriorate our trust in these really, really important programs that have been key to keeping people out of poverty.
Yeah, and they seem to be like bragging at this point about how much they've screwed over these programs. They've messed up the economy, or at least they're totally fine with it. Donald Trump has now very publicly made it clear that like $2, that's the limit. That's what you get. And no more, there's no more big Christmases. There's no more big Thanksgivings. We're going to cut back on how much we eat, how much, we buy. I don't know how this guy who like surrounds himself with gold has now embraced like a minimalist, like anti-consumption agenda. But if this was like, we talked about this with Pete Hegseth last time you were on the show. And we said, if Pete Hegseth was a black woman, or if he was anyone else, he would be fired, and the attacks from MAGA would never stop. If this was President Bernie Sanders, AOC, even if this was President Ruben Gallego saying, no more dolls for little girls because Democrats are changing the system, what do you think Fox would be saying about you if this is what you had said?
Well, I mean, they would probably be calling me like commissar, like the commissar deciding how many toys you get. It's just like, who the hell does this? This sounds like some old Soviet Union shit where you decide how many heads of cabbage you get this week for your soup, right? Like it's dumb. And look, the guy that has golden toilets is telling people how to live, a life of scarcity. More importantly, this is bad for the economy, right? We're a consumer-led economy.
Yes.
Right. If you don't buy more than $2 because you don't want to buy them or you can't, right? Let's say you can't. What that really means is that that's going to be less of a person that is taking that doll from the ship to the warehouse, to the store, stocking it. The person that actually does, at the checkout, that's less and less jobs, right? That means that the economy starts slowing down. That means that people's wages start dropping. This guy is such an idiot that he thinks that this is all about him, and that stupid statements like that don't actually have real effects, and they do. They will. What he's going to do is essentially, and he already has, but this last quarter, he's essentially killing this economy, and we still don't see any net benefit from it.
Yeah, and disproportionately, people in my generation graduating college right now, as my friends are, last week, or myself 2 weeks from now, cannot get jobs. Are you hearing something different from the young people who you may have interacted with on the campaign trail who are like, well, this guy's going to lower my costs, so I'm kind of leaning towards him? Are you already seeing that play out in these conversations you're having?
From the youths? No, I've not. Sorry, that's an old joke. No, like young people were distressed before this shit happened, right? They couldn't buy houses. They couldn't, they were so in debt to college and, college debt. They're living with their parents. They don't want to live with their parents. I mean, it's also just simple stuff. Like they don't get to live fruitful, fun lives, right? They can't go out as much. It's like all these things that like I got to take advantage of that people just don't understand. The thing that's so funny, everyone, talks about your generation as being like the most antisocial generation because you guys don't go out, don't do anything, you don't do all the stuff that we used to do. I'm like, yeah, I remind people, like, it's hard to do that when you're poor, right? It's hard to do that when, like, you guys grew up with everyone getting shot at, and every time you were, at these public events, like, it's a whole world that is totally different, and it's just getting worse. And this administration is doing nothing to help that. Now, they ran on some of this, right? But they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything for housing, right? What is a big housing plan that this president has to help young people get into their first house, right? Or to even find affordable apartments? Nothing, right? As a matter, they're actually making it even harder because, with immigration and with some of these policies, they're going to make it harder and more expensive for these houses to build. Not doing anything, obviously, for the economy to find jobs. I mean, like, this is all a administration that only cares about one thing, and that's giving tax cuts to the very, very richest, and everyone else that helped them get there, you're screwed.
Yeah. And it just seems like they don't, again, care to message in any way besides saying that, like, 2 weeks from now, things will be better. We're always 2 weeks away. As you're, heading out.
The stock market. So that's something that pisses me off. Whenever they ever see them say these positive messages, are usually on Mondays and Fridays. You'll notice why. On Mondays, because they want to start with the stock, you want to juice the stock market so it actually gets higher. And then as it starts to decline during the week, on Friday, they'll say something real like some kind of like cryptic message about how negotiations are going. So that way it gets high again. That's all fine and dandy. However, the economy is not the stock market. The economy is slowing down, whether the stock market goes like this or this, because people aren't buying, people aren't investing. I know from businessmen also and businesswomen that they're just holding ground. They're not going to buy anything new. They're not going to expand their companies. They're not going to raise wages. They're not going to hire people. That's where you fuck up the economy, right? So he can mess around again with all these stock markets. Your IRA can be up and down, up and down. The fact is, like, all indicators are the economy is slowing down, and that's going to have severely bad effects on people that are on the margins. Who are the people on the margins? Black, Latino, single women, and then young people that are just getting out of school.
Yeah, and we feel that. And well, let's play this game. You're at the town hall, Bucks County, young person like myself, about to graduate, comes up and says, Donald Trump is clearly me, but I don't know. I don't trust anything because I don't trust the government. What are you going to do if Democrats retake the Senate? How are you going to change things?
Whatever, when I tell them, like, I get it. I understand why you're in this position and why you feel this way, because in some regards, we haven't done anything for young voters, right? We did our best when it came to college debt, got screwed by the Supreme Court on that. But what we really need to do is focus on how to make the young voter feel that they're going to have a chance at the American dream. So we're going to do more housing and faster housing. I want to be able to turn over, some of the federal land that you see in cities that are just sitting empty. Let's build affordable housing right there as fast as possible. We need to, for our young families, we need to have a child tax credit. So that way it's easier for you to have kids, right? Support them, go to school. For a lot of other people that don't want to go to college, let's make sure they get the money that they need to actually go to the trade schools that they want, so they could also have a chance at the American dream.
And we need to hammer home that economic messaging. But I also feel like, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about some of the other chaos, especially as there's a lot of Democrats who, mostly anonymously, but are saying, hey, everything else is a distraction, which I disagree with, because the chaos does impact people's lives. But a lot of what we've seen be called a distraction are the human rights and violations of due process happening right now. Do you disagree with your colleagues? And in what way do you disagree with your colleagues who might say, Kamara Abrego Garcia, students being detained and shipped to Louisiana, people losing their due process, U.S. citizens being deported? That's a distraction. Sure. Let's just focus on the stock market. Well, what do you say to people your colleagues saying that?
Look, you have to find your opening and throw the punch, right? And see if it lands. And the other thing is, like, we don't all have to be on the same page, right? Some Democrats can focus on the economy. Some Democrats can focus on human rights and on immigration, right? It doesn't mean that these guys are wrong for only focusing on this and these guys are wrong for only focusing on that. Let's all be throwing what we can and see what we can land.
Like I said, we talked about Pete Hegseth last time. I feel like it would be unfair to close on anything else aside from, I got to give the guy credit. He did make he did have a big accomplishment. He got a makeup studio installed at the Pentagon. How do you feel about Pete Hegseth's blush or his foundation? How does he look? Does he look like he's really focused?
I mean, I had a joke on X or Twitter, whatever the kids are calling it nowadays, that the only makeup he should be wearing is camouflage. It's actually, by the way, if you ever are, for those that are in the military, when they give you your camouflage kit, it actually doesn't say camouflage; it says makeup kit on it. By the way, but that's neither here nor there.
Maybe he got confused. He's maybe had a couple.
Man looks good. Give him credit. Man looks good, but doesn't help that you're looking good and causing chaos around the world to our military forces, and then you're violating federal law by sharing very secret operations over signal chats with your mother and father-in-law. Like, that's That's not good.
And we have more reporting. I guess now I got a final Pete Hegseth question for you. How many more signal chats do you think we're going to see come out? Is it going to be 10, 20, 30 signal chats?
I mean, it sounds like he doesn't care. There's probably going to be more of the questions like how much is it going to do damage to our, allies, to confidence in us, to what kind of examples he's setting for the men and women in the military who are taught operational security, that if you do this, you're going to get, fired, court-martialed, reprimanded. But then the guy who is the Secretary of Defense does not feel like he has to live by the same rules. So, that's the bigger damage that's really happening.
Yeah, it's the no accountability administration, but that is our job. I know you're going to be bringing it to them at your town hall. I'm going to link anything I can for anyone who is in and around the area to go check that out. And I know you're on the road a lot. I appreciate the work you're doing, Senator. And thank you so much, as always, for coming on the show.
No problem, man. Guys, have a good one.